All of this unfolding while an anti-ICE mob stormed into a Minnesota church with worshipers in the middle of a Sunday service. Right there in the middle of it, disgraced former CNN anchor Don Lemon, well, he may be part of it. Take a look. Let's bring in Alina Habba, senior advisor to the Department of Justice. Alina, good to see you this Monday morning. So the Department of Justice announced Sunday night an investigation into this as a possible violation of federal law that prohibits disrupting people practicing their religion. Can you tell me where things stand this morning?
Sure. The Department of Justice always will. And this Department of Justice under Pam Bondi will most certainly enforce the FACE Act, which is a long-standing federal law that prohibits any type of threat or obstruction that would interfere with somebody going to something like religious worship, reproductive health services, things of that nature. And it carries criminal penalties. What we saw here was a disgrace. What you played earlier, where you're seeing people coming out, the mayor, for instance, coming out and enforcing and inciting even more hostility to agents that are taking their job seriously, is not acceptable, and it's not going to be tolerated by this Department of Justice.
Yeah, and of course, you know, we all remember not that long ago, we had those churchgoers who went to an abortion clinic and they were silently praying, and they were arrested due to the FACE Act. So, you know, everyone needs to be held accountable. But apparently these protesters, they believed that there was a connection between ICE and then this specific church. You had Don Lemon actually spoke with one of the church leaders. Let's take a listen to that.
It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
okay, but listen, we live in there's a Constitution and the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Yeah. We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus, because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world, is Jesus Christ.
Yeah, again, churches are they're private property, number one, and you know Don Lemon says they had the First Amendment on their side. You know, but Alina, do you see the potential of the former CNN personality maybe facing criminal charges for this?
I think your key word there was former CNN personality, and that's because he was canceled, and now he's so desperate that he will violate federal crimes in order to be relevant. There is a difference between First Amendment rights and going into a church where people are worshiping and disrupting and intimidating them because you think somebody who works there happens to be a volunteer for ICE. You're not allowed to do that. That's why laws exist, and we will go after anybody who violates federal laws. We will also look into who's funding this, who's organizing these people, who is coming out against federal law enforcement who are doing their job, which is, let's just remember, keeping us safe. Why can we all not get behind that?
Yeah, and I noticed, Alina, you're the pro at this, but I noticed he said the word "we" have a right to be here. We have the right, the First Amendment, the right to protest. That doesn't sound like a reporter. That sounds like a protester. All right, before we go, I do want to ask about a recent headline, though, from the Wall Street Journal that said that, quote, the president complained about Pam Bondi repeatedly to aides. Quote, the president has privately criticized his attorney general as weak and ineffective. Alina, obviously you are very close with the president and the attorney general. I know the White House disputes this report, but I wanted to at least give you a chance to comment on it.
Yeah, as somebody who is close with both of them and has the honor and privilege of working with both of them, Attorney General Pam Bondi and the president are really close. That is just completely untrue. She has been doing God's work at the Department of Justice. And while the American people may not see every investigation, because we frankly cannot show you and we cannot tell you, we need to protect those cases until they can come to fruition. She is doing everything she can to keep America safe and go after any criminal that tries to violate any law, and she will do so with a hammer. So frankly, those are just untrue. You know, we've seen divisiveness, people trying to break up administrations, people trying to create drama that doesn't exist. And this is just a far-reaching headline, frankly.
Yep. All right. Anyone who knows Pam Bondi knows she does carry a hammer. All right, Alina, thanks for joining us this Monday morning.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.